This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Do you play FanDuel and feel like you aren't creating consistent money-making lineups? Go over to the DFS Doctors on Twitter at the DFS Doctors and DM them with promo code Detroit Sports to get a free trial for their analytically formulated 70% lifetime profit rate NFL and NBA lineups. The whole purpose of playing daily fantasy sports is to get out there and compete and give yourself a chance to win. So go over to the DFS Doctors. Let them help you. They have analysts on staff that look at the best optimal lineup that you can put out there to win money. So why not take advantage? At the DFS Doctors, promo code Detroit Sports.
CBD is a game changer sweeping the nation. This hemp extract is the natural way to elevate your mood, eliminate aches and pains, reduce anxiety, and keep you sleeping all night long. It can even cut your workout recovery time in half. Get in the game today with 20% off all orders of CBD and lavender products from Lavender Lane, a lavender farm located right here in Milan, Michigan. Just go to lavenderlanemi.com today and enter coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order. Guys, look, these amazing products are infused with calming lavender to maximize their effectiveness, meaning your CBD items only take minutes to take effect, which is way quicker than those pills you were about to swallow. On top of it, they are perfect for men and women. Lavender Lane has lab-tested CBD creams, tinctures, and roll-ons that are perfect for any situation, even if you're on the go. Put your health back in your hands by heading over to lavenderlanemi.com and entering coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order of CBD and lavender products. What do you have to lose? Your satisfaction is guaranteed or your money back. So if you need lavender gifts for your loved ones or just looking for the natural way to ease your discomfort with CBD, go to lavenderlanemi.com and use coupon code Detroit to unlock these miraculous benefits of CBD and lavender. That's lavenderlanemi.com. And remember, use coupon code DETROIT for 20% off your CBD and lavender products from Michigan's own Lavender Lane.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome back to the Fan Reporter Show, made by fans, for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and sitting right across from me is our boy Andrew's going to give us this week's topics.
The Pistons made the decision to part ways with Reggie Jackson, further solidifying their commitment to landing a top 3 pick in the draft. Meanwhile, Pro Football Focus ranks the Lions as the most likely worst of first team next season. So we got one team going down, one team going up. Will either of these things happen? It's the Fan Report.
All right. Will either of these things happen? Pistons going top 3 in the draft. They're what, number 6 right now?
Yes,
if I recall.
Somewhere around there. I can pull up their exact ranking right now coming out of the All-Star break. But let's start with the Pistons, though, since we just brought it up.
So right now they're 6th. Mm-hmm. How close are they to that top 5 spot?
So here we go. Tank watch. We are number 6. We are currently 6 games out of the number 1 spot.
What about number 5? Let's
we're 1 game out of number 5.
Temper our expectations.
1 game out of number 5.
Okay, who's 5th seed right now?
5th seed's the Knicks.
Okay.
4th seed's the Timberwolves. We're also 1 game behind the Timberwolves.
Okay. What about top 3?
As far as top 3 picks are concerned, we are 3.5 games behind both the Hawks and the Cavs, who are 3 and 2 respectively.
I don't think you're getting close to either of those two teams, to be completely honest with you. I think both those teams are absolutely dumpster fires right now, and I think both are actively tanking on purpose, much like you. And for that reason, you're not going to be 3.5 games worse than them the rest of the way.
Honest question, though.
Yes.
Right now on paper, of the 5 teams ahead of us, the Warriors, the Cavs, the Hawks, Timberwolves, Knicks, how many of them can you honestly say have a worse roster on paper right now than the Pistons?
Almost all of them.
Really?
Yes, except for maybe the Timberwolves.
And trotting out G League players.
So are they. Have you seen the Warriors roster? Have you seen the Cavs roster?
The Warriors I'll give you.
The Cavs roster's garbage too. Don't sell me on 30-something-year-old Kevin Love.
I'll say I think the Hawks roster is better.
The Hawks roster is better. However, they are actively purposely losing ball games. So I don't care how good the roster is. If they are openly and obviously losing ball games on purpose, you lose automatically at that point. Automatically.
And I'll tell you, I think the Timberwolves roster is better than ours is.
I don't really think so. They have Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, and nobody else. And D'Lo is not having his best season, if I recall.
Well, I mean, he was on and off in terms of injury.
Exactly. And I'm going to take a guess and say that he's going to be off for the rest of the season for that team. And the Knicks roster's putrid, like god awful.
I didn't say it. I told you the Hawks.
I think that the only one that has a real shot of actually being the Hawks, I'm taking out of the equation because that is a team that is actively losing on purpose. They have a better roster than what their record dictates. However, it's very obvious that they don't want to win. They're doing this on purpose. You will not beat that because I don't know that the Pistons are losing on purpose right now. And if they are, they're not doing a very good job of it sometimes. Sometimes. The Timberwolves roster, I can't say is any worse than yours. I really can't. I can't say it's any better than yours, though, either. They are very top-heavy in Karl-Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell, which is better than anything you've got, I'd argue. Outside of maybe Derrick Rose over D'Lo right now, you can make that argument. But beyond that, what do they have? I would argue Tony Snell's better than most of their role players. I would argue Markieff Morris is better than most of their role players. I would argue Christian Wood's better than most of their role players. I think the Pistons have more depth, are a deeper team than the Minnesota Timberwolves are this year. Warriors, god-awful. Knicks, god-awful. Your roster's not worse than them. You have better. Your third best player is probably better than their first best. Let's be honest.
The Warriors, that's a team trotting out. They're basically trotting out a high school team is what they're trotting out.
I think there may be some high school teams who could give them a run for their money right now.
The two players that emerged is really productive.
Not really.
The two players that emerged is really productive for them in the first half of the season in Alec Burks and surprisingly Glenn Robinson. They traded both away. They're like, no, we can't have productivity.
That is a team that, unlike the Hawks, who has a good roster and is just purposely losing, the Warriors had a roster that wasn't going to win to begin with, and as soon as they saw players that could be playing well enough for them to win games, they got rid of them. They don't want to even give them the chance
you want
to win.
You know how bad it is in Golden State right now? Their offensive focal point is Marquise Chris. That is the focal point of their offense.
Oh, yeah. No, believe me, I know how bad that team is. But
they're so bad that I actually picked up Marquise Chris in a fantasy basketball.
I think there's a very solid chance that the Pistons could end up in the top 5. Very good chance the Pistons could end up in the top 5. I don't think the Cavs roster is really better than yours either. I think they have more to be excited about moving forward outside of
young talent.
Plus, you have the added aspect of that whole organization's in shambles right now with the whole John Beeline situation. And
Drummond already making demands.
Yeah. That whole situation's a mess, which never equals wins. That always equals losses.
The mean streak of Andre Drummond by trading more.
Who cares? He's gone. Let's forget about him. He's in the rearview mirror. Let's not look back.
But what we do want to talk about is Reggie. So we did buy out Reggie's contract.
About damn time.
And
took you long enough.
Signed with the Clippers.
Yes. They also took a flyer on Derek Walton Jr. today on a 10-day contract.
Did they? I actually didn't see this.
Yes. Derek Walton Jr. is now a Detroit Piston for the next 10 days.
Interesting.
Yes.
I expect to see a lot of those coming
I
through.
do too for the remainder of the year. I expect to see a lot of guys that are going to end up on 10-day contracts.
From the G
yes.
League. How much of a how much further do you think buying out Reggie Jackson propels us towards the bottom of the league? Do you really think it makes that much of a difference in terms of how bad, how much we're trying to bottom out?
No.
You don't think so?
No. Dude's garbage. He's been garbage the last 4 years.
Yeah,
he's had 2 good games since he's returned from injury.
In his defense, he's been playing well since he came back from injury.
Let's not every game. He's had 2 good games since he came back from injury, so let's pump the brakes on him, quote unquote, helping this team win.
I'm not trying to be Reggie. I want us to buy out Reggie Jackson.
He's garbage.
I'm just saying that because first of all, your depth at point guard is almost nothing at this point.
It was already almost nothing. Reggie Jackson didn't add to your depth. Let's just say Reggie Jackson wasn't going to cause this team to win any more ball games than they already would have. That's just the reality of the matter. He's not a good basketball player anymore, if he ever was one. Let me just start by saying that. Because in his time in Detroit, he's been bad. Solid player with OKC, and we hoped he would be good here, but he never panned out. He was solid for a little while when he was a focal point of this team, but he had a lot of issues with his game. A little out of control, a lot of turnovers, a lot of missed shots. There were issues, and ever since the injuries started piling up and the poor play started to continued, well, he became worse, and to the point where, he is worth buying out. I'm surprised it took him this long. But getting rid of him in my opinion, doesn't do anything to help this team lose basketball games at this point. I really don't, because I don't think he added anything to this team productively.
Yeah. He took after his first couple seasons with the team, and then he had that knee issue, the knee tendonitis. That's when he really took a big dip, in my opinion.
One thing that I am honestly got worried about right now is the I can't even think of the word I'm looking for, is the progression of Sekou Doumbouya. I think it was about a month ago where I said I did not want him up in the NBA because I think he's too raw and too young. My fears are starting to be realized now. He is seriously struggling as of late. For the last, I'd say, probably 3 weeks or so.
And Casey seemingly publicly called him out, too.
As he should. I'll tell you right now, this kid should not be in the show. He should be in the G League where he belonged to begin with. I did not want him up here because he will not succeed up here, and it's going to stunt his progression. It's going to stunt his development. He needs to be down where development is a focal point. Where he gets more run in the offense and defense. He becomes more of a focal player, which is what we need him to be in the future. We don't want that right now because he's not ready for that, and he's not getting that opportunity up here.
So what Casey basically publicly outed him for was inconsistent effort on the floor. A lot
of that is mental, which is something that a player that young is going.
My question to you is: do you because I feel like in the G League, he would be a guy that can get away with inconsistent effort just off talent.
Disagree 100%.
Has he even had a bad game in the G League? He destroys every game he plays in the G League.
That's good. That's what you want to build that confidence in and teach the effort level at that level.
I don't think it's about confidence. Again, I think it's about effort. So don't you think it'd be better for him to
Andrew,
at this effort?
At that age, the reason he has inconsistent effort is because of his struggles right now. He is at that age. Your ego is so fragile. Remember, think back when you were 19. Your ego is so fragile that if you get shut down, you shut down. You start to give up. You're not as mentally strong at that age and mentally developed. That's what he's going through right now, and that's what he has to battle through. In the G League, he doesn't have to battle through that because he's better. He can teach himself good habits, good mental habits, because he's going to be near the top of the league at that point. He's able to teach himself better things. It's not that he doesn't have the capability to try every night, and I don't think him being in the G League will hide that, quote unquote. I think he has an issue staying focused in the NBA because it's a little bit too above him right now. It's too tough for him right now. He's too raw. He's too undeveloped. He needs to develop mentally, develop some level of confidence, develop a level of confidence in his own game that allows him to then say, hey, I got this. I can go after this. Right now, he doesn't have that. In the last 3 weeks has proven that to me, that he doesn't have that right now. He doesn't have the confidence, and that's where his lack of effort is showing, is because he's too scared, or he's not confident enough in his own game to show the effort that he wants to be the guy on this roster. That's something like Pascal Siakam developed that in the G League. Yeah. That's what we need Sekou to do. Is he going to be Pascal Siakam? I don't really think so. That's way lofty goals. I still need to see more improvement on defense for one. Right. But that's stuff that you develop in the G League. The mental, you develop not only physical tools, but also mental tools in the G League that he's not going to be able to develop here because he just can't keep up. Is he a good ball player? Yes. Am I excited for his future? Yes. But I don't think he's ready to be up here. And I said that last month, and I'm saying it again now. And the last 3 weeks are proving my fears to be true. He's not ready. He needs to go back down.
However, side note, did you see that dunk on Tristan Thompson a couple weeks ago?
Yes, I did.
So let me give you a quote from Dwayne Casey. I just want to get your thoughts on this. He said about Sekou, we're going a little off topic, but just a little side thing for a second. I'm very concerned with Sekou and the fact that he's a young kid, his outlook, his demeanor. He should be having the most fun of anybody. Have all the girls and fun and whatever you want to do. Enjoy life and play basketball. You're playing in the NBA. Have fun. Do you think that's helpful at all?
No. I think that creates a situation where you have a lack of focus. I don't think that will help your development in any way.
He's in the NBA. He should be getting girls right now. I'm like, can we not think about that during the season?
Off season, sure, fine, whatever. As long as you're still on the court 5 days a week, at least 4 days a week, or in the weight room or something. But I think that there's a little bit, and also I think that the added distraction of being an NBA player for a 19-year-old is also something that's kind of messing with his effort level on a night-to-night basis as well. Because he's 19 in the NBA, or 20, I don't know if he's 20 yet, but in the NBA, clearly not ready for it. And then he's got all the added pressure, the constant fans staring at him every single time he plays, the added attention from the media, from girls, things like that. That can also affect your effort level, and he won't have a lot of those distractions in the G League. The G League is a better environment for a player to develop in.
Dwayne Casey himself, after he made those comments about Saku, he did talk about exploring sending Saku back to the G League for that exact purpose, to get his confidence back up.
And that's what I think he should do, because that's one of the things I was worried about, and that's one of the exact quotes I had about a month ago when I was talking when they first brought him up for an extended stay. I said I don't want to see him up here the entire year, and the reason is because I know he's hot right now, but what happens when he hits a bad stretch? What happens to the confidence of a 19-year-old? And look what happened to his confidence. It's dead. That can severely stunt a player's development for the future if he has zero confidence because he's getting destroyed in the NBA. He needed to stay down where he can build that confidence in his own game, and they wasted that opportunity by bringing him up so early.
So, question for you also. Now back to the whole trying to gun for that top 5 pick. Top 3, top 5. So, knowing that obviously we're not really trying to win games at this point,
I would sure hope not.
Knowing our depth at point guard, or lack of depth there, I should say, are you giving some playing time to Jordan Bone?
I'll give playing time whoever the hell's going to be willing to put on the uniform at this point. I don't care. Shit, trot me out there. Put me in, coach.
I feel like you're gonna have your.
I'll sign one of them 10-day shit contracts.
I feel like Bruce Brown's probably starting point guard right now.
I would imagine so.
Being spelled by Derrick Rose, and then I feel like obviously there's
is it just me, or does anybody else want them to shut Derrick Rose down for the year? There's no reason for him to play at this point.
There isn't. And obviously, inevitably, Derrick Rose is gonna miss some games. I feel like that's time.
Probably
to
at
see
least
what
10 to
Jordan Bone's
15.
got.
Well, 10. I expect D Rose to miss about 10 more games this year.
I would not disagree.
We've got 30 games left?
Yeah.
If that.
So
10 games.
Okay. We'll revisit this in a second, but let's move on to the football side of things. So Pro Football Focus came out with an article basically saying that the Lions are the most likely worst to first team for next season. And the quote we have from the article is, getting a healthy Matthew Stafford back next season to get the ball into the hands of downfield playmakers Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones Jr. should be a huge boost to this offense. With a high draft slot and a decent amount of cap space to work with, there's an opportunity for the defense to improve as well. It's not difficult to see the Green Bay Packers and Minnesota Vikings taking a step back next season, and that opens the door for Detroit to potentially host its first home playoff game since 1993. How far-fetched is this?
Extremely. And I've seen this model before, and a lot of people have compared the Lions of this year and what their expectations are to next year to what the San Francisco 49ers did this past season compared to the previous season. And the reason I say this is far-fetched, and the comparison for me at that point begins and ends at the quarterback position. I do think Kenny Galladay is better than any pass catching weapons that San Francisco has outside of George Kittle, but at the quarterback position, that's where the comparison really ends for me. Yes, San Francisco lost Jimmy Garoppolo after just a few games into that season a couple of years ago, and then they get him back, and look what happens. However, San Francisco, if you really paid attention to their season 2 years ago, if you pay attention to, and I'm talking specifically the last, I want to say it was about 6 weeks of their season, their defense was top 5 in the NFL.
Yeah.
The final 6 weeks of the year, they had an absolutely shut down defense. Something clicked, and I think it had to do with with a defensive coordinator change. I could be wrong, or a head coaching change. It was one of those two. Something clicked at that point on that defense to where they became seriously good. The Lions, on the other hand, this season were about 18 yards away from setting a franchise record for most yards given up. They did not have that click. They did not have that resurgence. They did not rebound from anything. They were just outright bad the entire year. And then you add in the fact that they're losing Snacks Harrison likely. They're losing Mike Daniels likely. They're losing Ashawn Robinson likely. All three of those guys are either free agents or Snacks Harrison could be a potential cut or a retirement candidate. So you're losing your depth on the D-line entirely. You don't know what's going to be available to you at 3. If you stay at 3, you could move back to 5. You add in the potential trade of Darius Slay. You add in the potential trade of Matthew Stafford, which we don't know is going to happen or not. I don't see a path where this team actually does go from worst to first, because whereas the quarterback position does immediately upgrade going back to Matthew Stafford and become something again, one, there's no guarantee he stays healthy. We haven't seen him be healthy for two straight years now. He still has a back issue. We haven't gotten a clean bill of health for him to this point, whereas in Tua Tagovailoa's case, we have. We don't know what his situation is. And also, oh, by the way, the 49ers had one of the best running games in the NFL this season. Where's yours? What's your rushing game situation look like? Kerryon Johnson, who's going to get hurt about 10 weeks into the year?
I can't remember.
Bo Scarborough, who averaged 4.1 yards per carry? That isn't going to do it.
I can't remember.
You don't have a Raheem Mostert, a Tevin Coleman, and whoever else they're trotting out there.
I can't remember what trade published this, but someone published an article projecting the Lions to get Melvin Gordon, which I honestly don't know how I feel about that, because I do like Melvin Gordon as a player. I just don't know if he's a fit with this team because
is he a guy who can eat up carries?
Yeah, but I feel,
and be good.
Yeah, but I don't. He's not a guy that's going to be able to handle, because we need someone that we can run to the ground basically, because we don't really have depth at the running back position. So I don't know if Melvin Gordon is now at the point where he's a guy I kind of want to spell.
I mean, he's 26 years old. He's young. He's coming off of that injury he had 2 years ago or not an injury. He's coming off of the situation where he was holding out, so he didn't get a full season of football. Not an injury, but he is a guy who has in the past.
Pro Football Focus. That's who it was.
Yeah, he is a guy who has carried the football 250 plus times in a season twice. He went to 175 in 2018, where I believe he was injured for some of that season, and 162 last year, where he held out for a bunch of weeks. He is a guy you can rely on taking a bunch of carries. And he is young enough and on the right side of 30 and at a good point on the right side of 30 at the age of 26, turning 27 in April before next season starts. But fun fact, he's a day younger than you. He is a guy that I can say I wouldn't mind handing the ball off to a ton. However, looking at his yard per carry averages throughout his career, 3.5, 3.9, 3.9, 5.1, but then back to 3.8. Those aren't good numbers. Yeah. Now, mind you, it is the Chargers O-line, which hasn't been good in eternity. Yeah.
Now,
but still,
looking at the reasoning, so I found the article, and it's from Jeremy Bergman, who's a Around the NFL writer. He said, with Kerryon Johnson heading to injured reserve for the last 8 games, Detroit is left with rookie Ty Johnson and J.D. McKissick. Is this old? This is old.
I was gonna say,
because it's an overlap, because PFF also, this is one saying that we should give Melvin Gordon on PFF came out, so it's an old art. Never mind. Ignore what I just said.
I don't know that Melvin Gordon is the guy I'm looking at. They do need to find someone to put some legs in the backfield of this team. And I'm looking for a guy that I'd be willing to give the ball to 10 to 15 times a game as well, comfortably, and make something happen.
How much do you have to pay to get Melvin Gordon here, though?
I don't know that you'd have to pay too much, because it's not like he was all that impressive last year when he did come back. Plus, he had that issue. I think he's going to end up having to take a little bit less than he would like, just because of the locker room issues with the holdout and the added fact that he wasn't amazing last year. He did still put up 612 yards and 8 rushing touchdowns, along with 296 receiving yards and a touchdown there as well.
So, Pro Football Focus projects his estimated contract to be 4 years, $28 million, with $15 million guaranteed.
So $7 a year. That's not bad at all. I would take that.
They also project the Lions to get Kyle Van Noy. Speaking of the devil, at 3 years, $30.5 million, so about $10 million a year.
I think you're overpaying for Kyle Van Noy.
Because I really do think it's not like you're getting a different player that you trade away. I don't think he just doesn't work with the system.
Well, the system's different.
It's different now.
It's different now. Now it's Matt Patricia's system, who you can argue he did run in New England. He did run with his system in New England.
You're not wrong.
And he did flourish there.
Yeah.
So it in that regard, it could work. I just don't know that he wants to come back here. He wasn't too fond of this place when he left.
Matt Patricia, and he wants to still play for.
I don't know. I don't know, but I haven't heard of a lot of people that actually want to play for Matt Patricia right now.
Very true.
But again, looking at the two situations, apparently, looking at the two situations between the San Francisco 49ers and the Detroit Lions, the similarities, like I said, begin and end with the quarterback position in terms of one. They both lost their quarterback, early to midway through the previous season, and they're getting them back going into the next season. But that's where they end, and the 49ers had an elite level defense. The Lions aren't even close to that. They're one of the bottom 3 worst defenses in the league going into next year. No. I'll tell you right now. I'll tell you right now. Matthew Stafford was an elite quarterback while healthy last year.
MVP caliber ball.
Yes, absolutely. However, how long does that last in next year? He's 32 years old now. He's coming off of 2 straight back injuries that ended his seasons 2 straight years, and we still do not have a clean bill of health for him, at least reported. That's concerning at the very least, in my opinion. And that's why I've said all along, throughout the previous few weeks of this podcast, I want them to draft Tua Tagovailoa and grab his replacement sooner rather than later. If you want to play Stafford one more year and then trade him or let him walk off into the sunset, wonderful. Let Tua sit. Let Tua develop. That's fine. This team can still find a way to compete throughout next season with the draft picks that they'll have. You could still find good talent on defense in rounds 2 through 7, 2 through 5. Let's be real.
Yeah.
But regardless, I am starting to become growing. My concerns are starting to grow with Matthew Stafford's future with this team, and I'll feel a lot better knowing that I have a guy like Tua Tagovailoa or even Justin Herbert. The way he's kind of come on big time over the last few weeks. I wouldn't exactly be upset having him waiting in the shadows to make his impact when Stafford ultimately either decides to walk, gets traded, or whatever.
Before I put out the final question here to close out the pod, I have one more direction I want to take this, and it's a little side note or sidetrack a little bit. But it was made very public that Martha Ford gave Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn basically a make the playoffs or you're out ultimatum kind of thing.
If that ultimatum's true, yes.
Yeah. So, does it make much sense to you that we're shopping Darius Slay, given that?
No. The only thing that I can see the reasoning behind them shopping Darius Slay is exactly the same reason they traded Quandre Diggs. Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn do not like guys that are outspoken in the against the organization in the locker room, and Darius Slay is very much so. He very much comes out and voices his displeasure with this organization.
It will annoy me to no end if we trade Darius Slay and draft Jeff Okudah.
I will especially at 3, I will just about give up on this regime entirely. If they do that, trade away Darius Slay and draft Jeff Okudah, I will just about give up on this organization entirely. You've downgraded.
Yeah.
You got worse in your first round of your draft. Congratulations. That will severely disappoint me if that's the route they go. I understand the obvious, you have this itch to fill that hole by trading away Darius Slay, which, by the way, have you seen the possible returns they've been looking at?
No, that I have not seen.
What would you think you would get for Darius Slay?
Second round pick?
Lower your asking price. Yep. The returns that I've seen the Lions getting for Darius Slay are a 3rd and a 6th round pick. Would you trade Darius Slay for a 3rd and a 6th round pick?
No.
I don't think I would either. And if that's what the return is, and the reasons behind that are his age.
Well, yeah, that's why,
his age.
Yeah. That's why I lowered it a 2nd.
Also, his contract. Because any team that they would have to trade him to would have to immediately then assign him to an extension, which also puts a stopping point on a trade in a lot of situations. So at that point, your asking price has to be lowered, which is where the reports are coming out that it's a 3rd and a 6th round pick. And frankly, I don't think I would do that. Detroit Sports Podcast the other day tweeted out, what would you do with Darius Slay? And they said stand pat. I agree with it. Yeah. I would stand pat. Because frankly, if I get one more year, provided he doesn't hold out, but if I get one more year out of Darius Slay and he's now 32 after that, bye. It's a known fact. Cornerbacks tend to decline after the age of 31. They just do.
Yep. And I agree with you 100%. And if this ultimatum is a thing and they're trying to stick this ultimatum, I just don't see why you wouldn't keep Darius Slay.
I don't either.
Now, with that being said, the question to tie a nice, neat little bow on this podcast is, what's more likely to happen? Pistons get a top 3 pick, or Lions host a playoff game this year? Pro Football
that's
Focus.
not even a question. Pistons get
Pro
top 3
Football
pick.
Focus seems to think might happen.
The Lions are so
Okay,
far.
let me rephrase it. Just make the playoffs. The Lions make the playoffs, or Pistons get a top 3 pick.
That's a little bit more realistic. I'm still going to say Pistons get a top 3 pick, though.
I agree with you.
The Lions are just so far away, in my
So many
opinion,
holes to
and
fill.
there's so much. And this is the problem I have with this offseason, is there's so much room for error this offseason. Because of this ultimatum, it can cause them to draft guys like Jeff Okuda that don't help your franchise in the future. That help your franchise probably now, provided you keep Darius Slay.
Yeah.
But in the future, when you start to rebuild this whole thing, when Matthew Stafford hits 34, when you start to look at having to rebuild this thing, and you look back to this draft and you passed on maybe a Tua Tagovailoa or the linebacker from LSU, or a Derek Brown, even though I don't want to take him at 3, maybe at 5. That's where you look at situations and say, okay, the best we got out of that was a cornerback. How much impact does a cornerback make on the football field on every given play?
Yeah.
Not as much as a guy that is on the D-line, not as much as a guy that is on the O-line, like left tackle or defensive end, pass rush, and definitely not as much as a guy like a quarterback. So when we're looking to rebuild this thing in a few years and we don't have one of those things because we passed on them in this draft, where are we going to be? That's what I'm so worried about with this draft is them making mistakes in regards to the future of this organization because of this ultimatum that's been put on them. I'm scared that we're going to fall into this dark age of Lions football that will seriously hurt many Lions fans.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, how many care at this point? But will seriously disappoint a lot of Lions fans, and it has a lot to do with this draft that could be so pivotal for your future. And I personally think the Lions are just so far away from a playoff spot because of the fact that their defense is putrid. It's hot garbage. And their offense is obviously nothing without Matthew Stafford there.
And the reason why Pistons landing a top 3 pick would be so attractive is because you literally can't mess it up. You can draft any position. We need everything.
Everything. Literally everything. You're not drafting for position.
Just draft the single best player available. What's
And
the
the
only
thing
job
is,
you have?
in the top 5 of this draft, there is good talent. There's the Anthony Edwards kid.
doesn't
There's
seem to be a
LaMelo
deep
Ball.
draft,
But in the top 5, there's a lot of talent there. You've got talent up at the top
That's
of this
why
draft.
it's
Now let's go get it.
Important to land there.
It is, and it really is. And excuse me, sorry. It does kind of excite me a little bit because I do kind of see this Pistons team. I do. I'll be honest with you. I do really think they get into the top 5 of this draft. I think
I do too.
finally. I think the record will get them in there, and I do think
Only a couple
finally
games out.
the ping pong ball gods, NBA draft lottery gods are done punishing us for drafting Darko 15 years ago, or it's almost 20 or 17 years ago. I think they're finally done punishing us and are going to fall in our favor and allow us to grab one of these top picks in this draft.
Yeah.
Now, just out of curiosity, when was the last time both the Lions and the Pistons were drafting in the top 3? When was the last time we had 2 teams drafting the top 3 in this city? I want to say it was
2 teams
2000
in general?
Yeah.
Oh.
And mainly referring to the Pistons and Lions because that's where those 2 drafts are 2 of the bigger ones. But I mean,
Top 3. Last time the Pistons drafted in the top 3 was
Darko. And I think what
And then
did the Lions
since then,
draft
I
that
think
year?
was it Isaiah? Was the last time we drafted? Oh wait, Grant Hill.
Grant Hill. Would that be the 2003 NFL draft, 2004 NFL draft?
What? Darko was 03.
No, 03?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Lions in the 2003 NFL draft were drafting number 2. So
there
at
we
least
go.
in 2003 we've had both those. I can't say that.
And
I
who did
can't
the Lions
tell you.
draft that year.
Charles Rogers.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, maybe rest in peace. But wow, ahead of you, Carson Palmer. Behind you, Andre Johnson. Yikes! I really do hope that the Pistons end up in the top 3. I really do. I top 5. I think you have a really good shot at. Top 3. I think you got to do some work or the opposite of work.
Yeah.
to make that happen because the teams down there are really, really bad, just like you.
Yep.
So,
all right. And that about does it for us on this episode of the Fan Report. We will be back with a fresh new episode next week. But other than that, do you have anything else you want to close with? All right.
No, I can think of.
Thank you for tuning in. This has been the Fan Report where it's by fans. Look at that switch.
For fans.
All right. Peace out, guys.
Have a good one, guys. See you next week. Thank you again. Peace out.